Hey everyone, Taiki here. So recently I entered a crypto trading competition and won first place for $114,000. So in this video, I want to tell you exactly how I did it. This took place on Hyperliquid and the tournament was called Last Man Standing, meaning that the last person left is going to take everyone's money. Unfortunately, that was me. The rules are pretty simple. You can read through the stuff here, but you can only long or short Bitcoin, right? Longing meaning that you're betting on it going up, shorting meaning you're betting on it going down, or you can just do nothing. And you had to full port. Meaning that you have to put, like, whatever your balance was, you have to put all your money into one trade. So you can't put like half your money into it, for example. So that's it, right? And you're pitted, or you face one other person each round. So if you end that round with a higher balance, then you take that person's money and then you advance to the next round. So round 1 had 128 people, round 2 had 64 people, round 3 32 people, etc. And then there were 7 rounds until there was only 1 person left. So that being said, let's talk about the strategy. And I'm going to spend a long time on this one because I think this is the most interesting part of the video, honestly. And unfortunately, if you clicked on this video expecting some trading wisdom advice or whatever, TA or indicators, whatever, like, you're not going to get that, right? I didn't really view this as a trading competition. I viewed it more as a strategy competition, and I guess like game theory and probabilities, because there's 2 ways to win, right? There's one way is to make more money than your opponent in that time span, or the second way is to lose less money than your opponent in like that time span. And I was definitely going for the latter approach, right? How can I lose less money than the opponent? When the round starts, you can take up to 5 actions, right? You can buy Bitcoin, buy Ethereum, short Bitcoin, short Ethereum, or do nothing. And I'm gonna use some diagrams here to help better visualize this. But to help think about my decision tree, right? Do I do something or do I do nothing? And I decided that for every round that I entered, I'm gonna start by doing nothing. And there are many reasons for doing this. First of all, if your opponent acts first, then I have better information, right? My opponent takes an action, then I can react once I have like more information. Secondly, and this is like kind of pretty intuitive, but you all notice that, right? Like 90 to 95% of traders lose money in the markets. Not because people are stupid, but because it's really, really hard, right? Not only do you have to be smart, you have to have a good psychology, like trading psychology, risk management, etc. And most people end up losing. And if you think about it, 128 people entered this competition wagering $1,000, right? These people are high ego, right? They think they're a profitable trader, right? Which statistically probably not, meaning that they're probably going to overtrade. They're going to be pretty active on their trading, and if I think that the average trader has 0 edge, then I just want to let the opponent just fuck up, right? And like I said, right? So like what I was going for is, can I just make it to the finals and win by doing nothing? But of course, doing nothing, right? It's not a perfect strategy, right? I think it's like the highest EV decision, right? EV meaning expected value. I'm going to be using that term a lot. It's probably the highest EV decision, but it doesn't mean that it's always going to work. Once I do nothing, there's 2 things that could happen from that point, right? I could be winning, meaning that, let's say my opponent longs Bitcoin and the market goes down, right? So I'm ahead. Or market goes up and then I'm losing. So what do I do in either of those scenarios? So let's go over the scenario where I'm winning. Okay, so what do I do, right? I can either do nothing or I can do something. So earlier in the round, so let's say the round is 24 hours and then I'm winning like 18 hours left. I'm gonna do nothing. Right? It's like literally the goal here is to get to the next round by doing nothing. And another factor I didn't mention earlier is, whenever you do trade in and out of markets, not only do most people have like negative edge, right, 0 edge in the markets, you also have to take some slippage, or like there's always fees when you trade in and out of markets, right? And if you think about it, let's say I buy Bitcoin and then I want to go short, right? So I pay some fees when I buy that position, I pay some fees when I close that position, and then I pay some fees when I want to open a new short, right? So I have to take so many actions in order for me to bet like on some direction of the markets, that I just want to minimize the amount of times I take trades. Earlier I mentioned like 18 hours left, right? So what if I'm still winning and I have like 2 hours left, right? So this is kind of an interesting part, right? So of course I can do nothing, but if you think about it, if there's like 2 hours left in the competition and I am ahead, then what is the highest EV decision for me to take, right? And that is to copy trade your opponent. So for example, in round 4 or like round 5, I believe I was up against this guy named Puni, who's part of like my premium community and whatnot, but he was behind and he was long Ethereum. So he was kind of betting on Ethereum pumping for him to get above my equity. And of course, right, if I do nothing, then I just have to pray that the market doesn't move. But if he's long ETH and I have more money than him, I should just long Ethereum, right? Because if I also long Ethereum and the market pumps, then there's literally no way for him to flip my equity, right? So that way I can lock in the win. So if you go back to like my decision tree, round starts, I do nothing. If I'm winning, I also do nothing. But if the round is almost over, the highest EV decision is for me to copy trade the opponent. So in a way, I'm not really playing the markets. It doesn't really matter what my opinion on the market is. I'm more so playing the opponent, if you think about it. So that's what I do when I'm winning. But it's always not going to be that easy, right? So obviously I'm doing nothing. But what happens if my opponent bets on Bitcoin going up and he's right? Like he makes money. So now I'm losing. Now what do I do? This is more difficult, right? Unfortunately, this is not really a position I want to be in, of course. Of course, I can just do nothing and then hope that the market goes down. But, people aren't stupid, right? After they're up some amount, they're going to just like, lock in or they're going to go flat and wait for me to react, right? They're going to do like what I'm going to do. So, if I'm losing, let's say, Bitcoin goes up, or my opponent longs Bitcoin and it goes up 1%, and we start with $1,000. So I have $1,000 and my opponent has $1,010. So he has a 1% advantage over me. Then what do I do, right? I think a lot of people, I was talking to a lot of people, the other participants, and they were saying, oh, like maybe I would long Ethereum, right? Because the markets are bullish and then Ethereum might pump harder. But I actually think that could work, but I don't really think that's the highest EV strategy there. I actually think that the most optimal strategy, if I know that my opponent is long Bitcoin, is to actually counter trade the opponent and go short Bitcoin. So let me talk about why. So let's say I'm up, or my opponent's up 1%, and then I choose to long Ethereum, right? Buy Ethereum. Then I have to hope that Ethereum outperforms Bitcoin by 1%. But if I counter trade my opponent, right? If I short Bitcoin, then the market only has to move by roughly 0.5% for me to flip my opponent's equity. So, like, what's more likely, right? Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin by 1%, or Bitcoin going down by 0.5%. Of course, I'm not really, I'm not really making an opinion on like whether Ethereum or Bitcoin's like a better asset. But in the context of this competition, I actually think that if I'm behind, right, it doesn't really matter what my view on the market is. I think the most optimal strategy was to counter trade the opponent, and this actually worked out in my favor many times. I think round 3 I just like kept counter trading and I ended up being right. Of course, like I said, I'm literally playing the opponent, right? I'm not even playing the market, meaning that there's a lot of luck involved. I think this tournament is roughly 60% luck, 40% strategy, because there's no way that in such a small sample size you can actually prove that you're a better trader. So you kind of just have to make the most optimal decisions at each point, right? Simplify the game tree, right? The decision tree, so that you know exactly what to do, right? You know exactly how to react. Think about it beforehand and then just execute on that strategy. And like I said, right? There were many instances where I would fall behind and then I would counter trade, and then I just got lucky. Like I literally got lucky. So that part I will admit, right? It's pure luck. But I also think that I put myself in a position where I put myself in a position to get lucky, and I think that I did have, like, this strategy that I had did have an edge in each round, and I think that's kind of what contributed to me winning the prize. And of course, right, it's kind of going back to the old game tree, decision tree, where if I'm losing and then I counter trade my opponent and then I start winning, then I'm gonna do nothing, right? Go back to doing nothing. And if I'm still winning near the end of like that round, then I would copy trade my opponent. So, this actually made the tournament pretty easy for me, because I didn't really have to stress about anything. All I had to do was wait for my opponent to do something, and then depending on the market direction, I just reacted. And then that's literally what I did, right? I was kind of like a robot. I didn't really care about where Bitcoin was, Ethereum was. I was like, okay, like my opponent did this, then I react with Y. I'm losing, I do this. I'm winning, I do this. And then there you go. All right, Taiki, enough about strategy. Let's talk about what actually happened at the tournament. And I thought about doing like a play-by-play for each round, but then the video would take too long. I actually did like a live reaction or like a live play-by-play for round 6 and 7, the semifinals and the finals, just so I can kind of document what I was thinking. But for rounds 1 through 5, I just instead of like going through like what happened in each round, I was gonna go through like the main points that I recognized throughout the tournament. So in each round, I would do nothing, and my opponents would always act first, which I thought was minus EV, right, for them to do. So they were kind of playing into my strategy. I definitely noticed a trend of over trading. So like I mentioned at the strategy part, if I would be winning, right, I would just go flat, right? I would do nothing. But there were many instances, I think in every single instance actually, where my opponents, let's say, would long Bitcoin, market would go up like by 0.5% or something, so they're up 0.5% against me, but they would just keep holding on to that position for, I don't know, ego or whatever reason, right? And like I mentioned earlier, I think they were like making poor decisions. I think what was happening is, I think a lot of these people, they were trying to optimize for making the most amount of money, where I was optimizing for increasing the probability that I would end up winning each round. Some funny moments. Round 3, there was a guy, or my opponent, his name was like Manvinder. Another thing I would try to do is I would identify like the Twitter account for each participant or like each opponent, and then I would try to figure out if they would be, tweeting certain leaks, right? If they were leaking any edge by tweeting about something, because maybe they wouldn't expect some like YouTube Taiki YouTuber Twitter guy to care about my opponents. But round 3, Manvinder, he so I was actually ahead of his equity by like a whatever, right? I was winning, and I think as a last resort, he was like, okay, like I'm all in. I'm short Ethereum, right? And he would post a screenshot of him shorting Ethereum, which is like what are you doing, right? Like now I can just short Ethereum, I can copy trade you, right? Going back to my strategy, and then I would just lock in the win. And I actually think the market went down. I actually think Ethereum went down, but there's like no way for him to win, right? Unless he changed his position or anything. If you're in a competition, like you should definitely not tweet out your positions. Now I'm gonna change this video, right? You're gonna see me with my live reactions, so you'll hear my reactions during round 6, right, as I'm living through it, and like my reactions during round 7, which I thought was pretty funny. So let's go through that that segment there. All right, so I made it to the next round. It's the semifinals now. So my strategy today is the same as my past days. In the first 24 hours, I will not trade, and hopefully let the opponent make a mistake. And at the date of, or at the time of making this video, my opponent just immediately went short the markets, and then the market started pumping. So I'm already at an advantage. So hopefully, I don't have to do anything, right? Just let the other guys shoot themselves in the foot. So today, I have acting class. I'm also hosting a dinner, so I'm just like not going to pay attention to the markets. So hopefully we just start pumping, and he just never closes his short, or when he does close his short, then we start dumping, and then he's gonna just panic. So let's win this thing. All right, day 2 of the semifinals. So I woke up and apparently I'm up like 6% against him, right? Meaning that he lost money because I didn't do anything, right? I was just like living life. And I go over to his Twitter, and he has like this sad post about how he shorted ETH. And ETH is up like 10% since, I guess, yesterday morning. So, like with most trading competitions, you don't have to trade, right? You just have to let the other guy shoot themselves in the foot. And now I just have to figure out if he's long or short. And as we get later and later into the round, right closer to the end, I'm just going to copy trade him so I can just lock in whatever the equity difference is. So let's keep this going. All right, so made it to the finals. Easy peasy. My semifinal opponent just shorted the markets, then we pumped. I didn't have to do anything, right? So final round, hopefully the same happens. In the first 24 hours, my strategy is to do absolutely nothing, and hopefully my opponent just loses money. If I am behind though, I'm probably just gonna try to do what I did in the earlier rounds. So for example, if he's up and he's, let's say, long Bitcoin or ETH, I just have to short the markets, right? Because if he's long and I'm long, then that's not how you win, right? You just have to hope and try to get lucky by counter trading the opponent. And if he just makes money and then he just like sells, right, and he camps me out, then I'll just have to try to like trade, I guess. My opponent and I, we decided to split the equity. So for example, if the final prize is 100K. 25% of that, so 25K is going to go to the second place winner, and the winner will keep 75K. You know, I guess we're chopping up some of the equity. I know, you know, it would be sexier if I just say, oh, like I'm going to go for glory, but you know, 25K, 30K, right? That's still a lot of money. So, you know, we just decided to keep it friendly. I totally forgot to address the elephant in the room. So what's going on here, right? Like, Farmer Taiki, is he back? The answer is yes. He is making a comeback. I even have these overalls. I'm working on a video concept. Actually, you know, if I'm done with the video edit, you know, by the time I upload this video, let me just add like this small clip that I thought would make like a cool intro for my later videos. So let's play it. All right, day 2 of the finals, 48 hours left. None of us has done anything. I'm still not gonna do anything. I've done some light trash talking on Twitter, right? Try to get the guy to act first. Probably not gonna work, but hey, we'll see. So next 24 hours, I'm not gonna do anything unless he starts doing stuff. So I'll see you tomorrow. All right, round 3, 16 hours left, and my opponent has made the first move. Judging from his equity change, right? As I study the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think he is short the markets, and he is down money, right? So he's doing exactly what I wanted him to do. So maybe the light trash talking helped. So it would be poetic if I just win the finals without doing anything. You know, that would be part of the, like, most of the strategy that I've been doing this entire tournament. But my game plan is I hope he panics. I hope he just out trades a lot, gets eaten up by, you know, fees like slippage, etc. And yeah, hopefully, right? My you know, best case scenario is I just do nothing. But I'm probably just gonna wake up really early tomorrow, like 5 or 6 a.m. I think the round finishes 10 a.m. Eastern or 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. So I don't want to go to sleep with any positions open. So I'd rather just get a good night's sleep. You know, I went to the New York Transit Museum today, right? I was just like enjoying my day. And I guess my opponent maybe was locked in, staring at the charts. Sometimes, you know, touching grass is all you need to do. That being said, I don't want to get too ahead of myself because he could kick my ass, and I would look back to this moment and be like, what the fuck? He's only down like $200-300. But, you know, that's the game plan, right? Just do nothing, let the opponent fuck up, hopefully. And if he doesn't fuck up, then figure it out later, right? So see you guys tomorrow morning. Hey everyone, so 2 hours and 45 minutes left. I'm getting a little nervous because since my last update, the markets are down roughly 10 to 20 bips. So he is catching up with me, meaning that he is short. I'm assuming he's short Ethereum because, like, you know, probably, right? Everyone wants to short Ethereum. So, you know, I really don't want to do this copy trade thing, like, when there's 65 minutes left in the competition. But my hand might be forced here, so I think I'm gonna just short ETH at 1803 at like 8:15 a.m. or something. So actually, I'm gonna click that button right now. Some trade, short Ethereum. Hopefully I don't get wrecked by slippage. That's my biggest concern, right? Every time you click trade, you lose some money to slippage, which is like why I just want to be flat in the first place. But, fuck. You know what? I'm not, okay, I talked myself out of it. So ETH is at 1803. If we go a little lower, not sure. All right, let me reconsider. All right. 8:32 a.m., 2 hours and 29 minutes left in the competition. I shorted ETH at 1799 because, like I said, it broke 1800. He's short something. I don't know which asset. But if I want to short an asset, I have to choose Ethereum, right? That's the rule I set for myself. So still going to monitor closely what he's doing to the best of my abilities. Going to just keep spamming the refresh button to see you know, what he's doing. If he flips long, I might just go flat or go long. I don't know. This might be a heated ending to an exciting competition. So, you know, catch you guys in the next update. All right, guys, it's been like 5 or 10 minutes, and I decided to close my ETH short. Lost $132.52. You know, I don't really know what I'm doing, honestly. But the thought process is, okay, like, there's 2 hours and 18 minutes left in the round. Despite me losing some money, I'm still up maybe like 40 pips against his equity. I shorted ETH, but I think he's short Bitcoin. And like ETH kind of went up and Bitcoin is kind of flat. So that was kind of bad for me. And I kind of got to this point, I was kind of thinking about this for the past 5 minutes. It's like, do I really want to be in a position where I'm like just like flip-flopping and then refreshing balances, trying to figure out what his position is? Because if I guess wrong, then I might just be forced to capitulate like I just did now. And then, you know, not only did I give up some of my lead, I also ate some losses in slippage. And, you know, right now I'm up by like $250, which is, yeah, like I said, like 40 bips. So maybe it's higher EV for me, right? Higher expected value for me to just do, like literally just do nothing, right? Unless I literally get flipped. Because for me to lose, I basically have, or he basically has to bet right, you know, on like a 50 basis point move in the markets, like directionally. And also, the markets have to move, right? It's a Sunday morning. There's a chance that we just go flat and then I just win that way, you know? It's like Sunday, like usually weekends have less volatility because people are not at their desks. So maybe, you know, the highest EV decision isn't to do my whole copy trade strategy, but it's to do nothing. That being said, I did open an ETH short like 10 minutes ago and I closed it immediately. So chances are maybe in 5 minutes, I'm like, you know what? I need to short ETH again or something. But I think I'm leaning towards just doing nothing and then just either betting on two things, right? So yeah, like I said, right? He has to be right and the market has to move. You know, maybe it's better for me to just bet against that essentially. So there you go, right? Hopefully it ends up working out. Bye-bye. All right, guys, 10, 12, 11 minutes left. I think he's just gonna short Bitcoin until the end of the round. So I just shorted Bitcoin with like a $400 lead. It's a good spot to be in because if he decides to counter trade and go long, then he has to sell Bitcoin, then buy Bitcoin, and then he has to eat slippage twice. So I think it's gonna be really hard for him to do it unless some miraculous thing happens. So let's go.
Tonight, Gotham's relying on one man to save us all.
And there you have it. I mostly did nothing and I won $114,000. Actually, I won like 86K because I gave my second place opponent like 25% of the prize. But you know, like in 2 weeks, I did nothing and I won 86K. Can't really complain, right? And to talk about some takeaways, I mean, I don't really know if there are any takeaways, honestly, because you're not really gonna, you know, I'm not really claiming to be like a good trader or anything. Like I literally did nothing, right? But one interesting thing that I thought, or my observation was that there were 128 people that thought that they would win this thing, right? Or that they're good traders or like whatever. And the total prize pool at the beginning was 128K, right? Because we all contributed $1,000. But if you think about it, I only won 114K, or like the final prize pool was 114K, meaning that in the 2-week time span that the tournament was held in, the player pool, right? The player pool lost 10% of their capital in 2 weeks. That's horrible. Like, what the fuck, right? And this was a time when Bitcoin bottomed and it started pumping, right? Bitcoin was pumping throughout the entire tournament, and then the player pool lost 10% of their capital. What the fuck, right? So I think that kind of solidifies the fact that, yeah, it is very hard to trade, and usually, buy and hold strategy, right? Or like a do nothing strategy tends to outperform very active strategies. Like even for me, right? Like I'm full-time crypto. I do a lot of research. I spend like 40, 50, 60 hours a week doing fundamental research, technical, not really technical analysis, but a lot of research, right? Trying to outperform the markets. And I'll be honest, in the past few years, I have barely outperformed Bitcoin, right? Like I have barely outperformed Bitcoin. So at least I outperformed Bitcoin, right? Like I know so many fund managers, like liquid funds, right? People pay them money and they literally underperform. It's like how many hedge fund managers underperform like the S&P 500, right, in the stock market, and then many people in crypto underperform Bitcoin. It always happens, but humans are greedy, right? Humans always think that they're smarter than they actually are, and trading isn't really like it's not really like an IQ thing, right? It's more psychological. So my round 6 opponent, Wasa, he kind of had this like very long post. Maybe I'll post a screenshot here, talking about how he fucked up. He kind of had this post that's like, okay, like rounds 1 through 5, he was like more casual, whatever, and then round 6, he thought he could win, and he kind of got really emotional, and he said that he would trade like 3 or 4 times a day when he won, and then he would trade more when he was losing. Maybe, right? But like also, like why is he making 3 to 4 trades a day, right? I also don't think that makes sense. Scalping is very hard. But nothing against Wasa, right? He DM'd me and he's like a nice guy. But it's like trading is psychological, right? Because you might you have an opinion, you buy something and then it goes down. Then what the fuck do you do, right? Do you just keep hoping, right? Or do you eat the loss? Or do you like flip bias, right? It's really hard, right? Crypto, or just markets in general, really hard. I don't claim to be an expert. I don't claim to be a master. So I think generally, I think it's better in markets to just have humility, right? Just assume that you have no edge, and then just go that way, right? And if you do have an edge, then you kind of exploit that. But in this tournament, my edge was more on the strategy side, not on like the trading side. And I think I was able to exploit people's egos and people's overconfidence in their own abilities, and some game theory decisions that I made that kind of ensured that I would, end up making it to the next round, and then end up winning the final round. So that's gonna be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Hopefully you took away something from this, right? I don't even know if there's any interesting pieces there were, but I hope another competition like this happens. I would love to participate. Of course, me making this video would mean that people would know exactly what I'm doing, but then, right, my counter strategy, or I would have to come up with a counter strategy, right? Like if people think I'm doing this, then what's the optimal strategy to counter that particular strategy? Or maybe the strategy is to do nothing, right? And like make people think that I have a counter strategy. I love this game theory stuff, right? It's like a poker tournament, right? It's like sometimes like the best player wins, and like poker pros tend to win all these tournaments, but sometimes you see like these like random like dudes, right? Like some 60-year-old with like a farmer hat make it to the final table, and you think to yourself like, how the fuck did this guy like make it here? And then like the farmer hat guy will say that he's super smart, and then like these pros are fucking stupid. But then we all know that like, yeah, this guy lucked his way into the final table. But yeah, like sometimes you have to luck your way into the final table, and fortunately I live in a universe where I ended up winning, but I definitely don't expect to repeat it or anything. Anyways, thanks guys for watching. See you guys another time. Bye-bye.